If dating feels more like scrolling through potential than actually connecting with people, it's time for a romance reboot. We're living in a low effort dating era, one where convenience has replaced curiosity, where hey is considered an opener, ghosting is normalized, love bombing is common, and breadcrumbing gets mistaken for interest. And yet, people are lonelier than ever. People aren't craving more options, they're craving real connections. Today's episode is your romance reboot. We're discussing modern dating standards, healthy effort, emotional reciprocity, and what it really looks like to build connection in a culture that's become comfortable with the bare minimum. If you're done entertaining low effort dating, tired of decoding mixed signals, and ready to raise your romance standards without becoming hardened or closed off, this conversation is for you. Because wanting effort doesn't make you too much. Wanting consistency doesn't make you needy. Wanting emotional maturity doesn't make you unrealistic. It makes you ready for something authentic. By the end of this episode, you'll see modern dating and your role in it through a more empowered lens, clear about your standards and grounded in your worth. You'll become confident in what constitutes healthy efforts. Welcome to Signals and Standards with Suzie, where we decode mixed messages, elevate your standards, and deliver practical insights that you can act on. I'm your empowerment coach, Suzie, here to guide you from confusion to clarity, helping you reclaim your power and create the relationships and life you deserve. Low effort dating didn't happen overnight. It crept in quietly, like weeds taking over a garden that stopped being tended. Convenience became king. Apps made people endlessly accessible. Messaging removed the need for real presence. And slowly, many people stopped approaching connection as something to nurture and started treating it like something to sample. Yet research and lived experience continue to point to the same truth. Love has always required intention. Technology didn't change that. It simply gave people more opportunities to avoid doing the work. In dating today, more options can feel like freedom, but it often backfires. Psychologist Barry Schwartz calls this the paradox of choice. Having too many options can overwhelm us. It can increase our doubt, and it can keep us from recognizing the people who are actually ready to show up. Sometimes less really is more, especially when it comes to love. Think of relationships like physical fitness. You don't become strong by buying running shoes. You become strong because you lace them up and show up again and again. In the same way, healthy relationships aren't discovered fully formed. They're built through consistent effort. Longitudinal research demonstrates that couples who believe love grows through effort and learning report higher relationship satisfaction over time than those who think love is purely about destiny or being meant to be. In other words, waiting for things to feel effortless forever often leads to disappointment, while believing love is something you co-create leads to stability and fulfillment. However, healthy love isn't about destiny. It's about daily decisions. This is where effort becomes visible, not in grand romantic gestures or over-the-top promises, but in small, observable behaviors. A study examining what predicts second dates found that kindness, basic etiquette, and engaged presence, eye contact, laughter, and genuine curiosity were stronger predictors of continued interest than flashy lines or exaggerated confidence. So, what does this mean exactly? It means that effort shows early and quietly. It looks like showing up on time, asking thoughtful questions, and remembering what you shared. Following through when you say you will. Being mentally and emotionally present. Low effort dating, by contrast, often disguises itself as charm. Someone might send flirty messages, but never make concrete plans. They might check in just often enough to keep the connection alive, but really never invest enough to let it grow. This pattern is referred to as breadcrumbing, offering small gestures of attention without real intention or availability. It keeps people hooked while protecting the breadcrumber from accountability. Patterns such as breadcrumbing and ghosting slowly erode self-esteem, attachment security, and trust, even when people try to brush them off as just how dating is now. But that doesn't make it okay. Ghosting, in particular, is a signature symptom of the culture of convenience. Online dating makes it easier to disappear than to explain. But psychologically, the impact is heavy. Research suggests that being ghosted can produce emotional pain comparable to direct rejection. And in some cases, it keeps people more attached because the lack of closure fuels that rumination, the overthinking, and it fuels hope. Ambiguity prolongs distress. Clarity, even when it's disappointing, is a lot kinder. So when someone disappears, it isn't a verdict on your worth, it's data about their own capacity. Emotionally mature people don't avoid discomfort. They don't outsource responsibility to silence. They communicate. They own their feelings. They can tolerate hard conversations without fleeing. Psychologists describe emotional maturity as the ability to regulate emotions, take accountability, express needs respectfully, and engage in repair when things go wrong. This is the backbone of reciprocity. Without emotional maturity, effort collapses. With it, effort becomes sustainable. Romance, despite what social media sometimes tells us, isn't dead. It's evolving. And part of that evolution is recognizing that romance isn't only about chemistry and sparks. Romance is consistency. Romance is reliability. Romance is choosing each other even when it's inconvenient. Research shows that everyday gratitude, small, consistent expressions of appreciation, strengthens responsiveness, commitment, and relationship maintenance. Saying, I appreciate you, thank you for showing up, or that means a lot to me, may seem simple, but it creates a feedback loop of care that fuels emotional reciprocity. Modern standards, then, aren't about perfection, they're about patterns. Key works on healthy relationships emphasize principles such as authenticity, emotional intelligence, values alignment, and self-care as foundations for thriving relationships. When applied to dating, this means choosing partners who are authentic with you, emotionally aware, aligned with their goals, and able to care for themselves and the relationship. Boundaries play a key role here too. They aren't about shutting people out. They're about clearly communicating availability, priorities, and expectations. In dating, that might sound like, I'm looking for consistent communication, or I'm dating with intention, or I don't continue connections that feel one-sided. These statements aren't ultimatums, they're invitations to reciprocity. Low-effort dating collapses under standards. High-effort love rises to meet them. I have long emphasized in my writing that it's essential to spot low effort early, paying attention to consistency, follow through, and whether someone's actions match their words. When you keep your standards front and center, you waste less time negotiating with potential and more time aligning with reality. Here's the reframe that changes everything. You're not here to convince someone to choose you. You're here to select people who already know how to show up authentically and honestly. When you lead with self-respect, emotional clarity, and steady standards, the wrong people don't always disappear instantaneously, but they do lose access. And really, that's not a loss. That right there is alignment. Let's slow this down and turn today's conversation into a coaching moment. Grounded, lived in wisdom shaped by decades in the dating and relationship space, thousands of coaching conversations, the thoughtful messages that land in my inbox, and some emotional patterns I've watched repeat themselves across generations, life stages, and relationship histories. If something in this episode stirs a question for you or brings something up in your own heart, you don't have to hold it alone. You can always reach out at powercoachsuzie.com. I read every message, I sit with them, and many of these episodes are directly born of what you entrust to me. One of the most common questions I receive is simple, but carries a lot beneath the surface. How do I know if I'm expecting too much? Or if someone is just low effort? I appreciate this question because it demonstrates your self-awareness. It tells me you're trying to be fair. It tells me you know when something feels off. It tells me you're not looking to be demanding. You're just looking for honesty. And that already says a lot about the kind of partner that you are. So let's ground this in reality and not fear. Seeking consistency is not unreasonable. Wanting follow through, it really is not irrational. You want kindness, you want communication, emotional presence, and respect. It's not unreasonable to want all these things. They're not luxury upgrades. They're baseline relationship requirements. Where people start to suffer is when they confuse standards with fantasy. Wanting someone to suddenly become a different version of themselves than the one they've repeatedly shown you they are isn't a standards. It's evidence. Here's a simple lens I want you to start using. If you removed their words and only looked at their behavior, would you feel secure or would you feel confused? Would you feel hopeful? How about attached? How about imagining their potential? Would you be secure or confused? Your nervous system, it's an incredible truth teller. You should listen. When someone is aligned and emotionally available, they usually feel calm and steady. It doesn't feel off. They check in without being chased. They make plans and follow through. They show genuine curiosity about your life, your inner world, your experiences. Their communication has a rhythm. You're not spending hours analyzing tone or timing or subtext. It's not perfect, but it's consistent. And consistency creates safety. Confusion feels very different. Confusion looks like hot and cold behavior, long gaps followed by sudden bursts of attention. Only reaching out when it's convenient. Talking about wanting something serious while living in a way that doesn't support seriousness. Confusion keeps you looping, overthinking, second-guessing yourself, and trying to read between the lines that shouldn't exist in the first place. Here's the more profound truth. Expectations become unhealthy when they're disconnected from reality. Standards become powerful when they're based on patterns. We talk a lot about patterns here. Patterns are more important than promises. Behavior is really more important than the potential you put out for this person. You want that consistency. It's not the big fireworks and chemistry. You're not being too demanding about real effort. And you're not being unrealistic. You're simply asking the wrong person to meet the correct standard. I once coached someone who kept saying, "But when we're together, it feels amazing." So I gently asked them, "How often are you actually together?" They paused, quietly said, "Once every few weeks when they feel like calling me." That single moment changed everything. Unforgettable moments are great and lots of fun, and they're wonderful. But they don't build relationships, if that's really what you're looking for. Consistent experiences build relationships. Connection isn't created in highlight reels. It's made in the ordinary everyday. The check-ins, the shared routines, the steady presence, the showing up even when it's not exciting. Chemistry without consistency becomes emotional quicksand. It feels really intense. It feels magnetic. It's great. But the more you move, the deeper you're going to sink. And when they truly saw that, they stopped chasing sparks and started looking for something a little more steady. Their next relationship didn't feel like fireworks, but it felt like safety. It felt peace. It felt like being able to exhale. And that's when they realized something powerful. Peace is a form of passion too. There was a season in my life where I accepted far less than I deserved. Not because I didn't know better intellectually, but because deep down I didn't believe I was worthy of more. I was the overgiver, the overexplainer, the one who bent, adjusted, who accommodated, who minimized myself and minimized them behaving badly. I thought love had to be earned. I believed that if I were kind enough, patient enough, understanding enough, flexible enough, maybe someone would choose me the way I was choosing them. But the truth was, I wasn't actually choosing myself. Instead, I was operating from old wounds and unhealed beliefs that told me my value came from what I provided other people, not who I was. That being useful was the same thing as being lovable. That asking for too much meant risking abandonment. I learned to tolerate breadcrumbs and the exciting moments that came inconsistently. In fact, I learned how to rationalize inconsistency. I learned to set aside my own values to maintain the connection. And the most challenging part to admit is this: I participated in my own abandonment. Not consciously, it wasn't intentional, but it was quiet and repeatedly every time I stayed silent when something didn't sit right. Every time I accepted half efforts, every time I chose potential over the reality, every time I devalued myself. But everything changed when I stopped outsourcing my worth and started building it from the inside out. When I began asking myself, do I respect the way I'm showing up in my own life? When I started keeping promises to myself, when I began honoring my boundaries and respecting my values, even when it felt uncomfortable and unfamiliar, I didn't become colder. It didn't harden me, but everything became clearer. And clarity changes everything. As my relationship with myself strengthened, my standards rose naturally, not from a place of defensiveness, but from self-honoring. I stopped auditioning for love. I stopped trying to prove myself and over-functioning. And something fascinating happened. The people who were only comfortable with the version of me who overgave slowly fell away, while the people who were capable of meeting me with consistency, depth, and respect began to appear. Not because I forced it, not because I chased harder, but because I finally believed I deserved better. Here's the life lesson in all of this. We don't attract what we want. We attract what we believe we're worthy of. Let me say that again. We don't attract what we want. We attract what we believe we're worthy of. When you heal the part of you that thinks love must be earned, you stop negotiating your needs. When you start validating yourself, you stop begging other people to see you. When you know your worth, you don't have to demand better. You quietly align with it. And that quiet alignment becomes the foundation for everything that comes next. So let me leave you with this. Effort is a choice, not a personality trait. Consistency beats intensity. Clarity is kindness. Boundaries invite the correct behavior. You don't need more options. You need better alignment and authenticity. You're not here to convince someone to choose you. You're here to select people who already know how to show up. And that isn't settling. That's self-respect in action. Remember, effort is a choice, not a personality trait. Consistency beats intensity. Clarity is kindness. Boundaries invite the correct behavior. You don't need more options. You need better alignment. You are not here to convince someone to choose you. You are here to select people who already know how to show up. And that isn't settling. That's self-respect. So here's your affirmation and something powerful you can carry with you this week. It's simple, but it's very regulating and transformative as well. So repeat after me. I choose reciprocal love. I choose reciprocal love. I choose reciprocal love. This affirmation isn't just a sentence. It's a repatterning. It gently rewires the part of you that learned to equate love with struggle, with uncertainty, or even overgiving. It brings you back into alignment with mutuality. You don't need to chase anyone or convince them. You don't have to prove yourself or overperform. Consciously choosing connections where effort, care, curiosity, and presence flow in both directions. I choose reciprocal love. When you repeat this, you're reminding yourself that love isn't something you earn through your exhaustion. You don't need to hustle for it. You don't have to secure it by shrinking. Reciprocal love is steady, responsive. It's safe. Say it when you're tempted to settle for crumbs because you're tired or get that 2 a.m. call, what you doing request. Say it when loneliness whispers that something is better than nothing. Say it when you feel proud of yourself for honoring a boundary. When you walk away from mixed signals. Say it when you choose yourself, even if it feels uncomfortable. Each time you repeat this affirmation, you're sending a clear message to your nervous system. I am allowed to have love that meets me. I am allowed to expect consistency. I am allowed to want mutual effort. Over time, this shifts what feels familiar. Chaos stops feeling exciting. Inconsistency stops feeling romantic. And you don't get any hope from breadcrumbs. Safety is attractive. Consistency is desirable. It's time to expect that rather than expect less. This romance reboot isn't about closing your heart or building walls. It's about sharpening your self-awareness and strengthening your self-respect. It's about knowing your needs and honoring your values, trusting yourself enough to walk away from what doesn't meet the standard of care you're committed to. Low-effort dating may be normalized in today's culture, but meaningful, intentional love has not disappeared. It still exists. And you don't find it by shrinking, settling, or convincing. You find it by staying rooted in who you are, by choosing alignment over potential, and by continuing to show up for yourself until someone meets you with the same clarity, from the same consistency and intention that you bring. It's not a fantasy. It's real romance. And it's a standard worth standing in. Thank you for being here and stepping into your power with me today. I look forward to seeing you next week for another empowering conversation. You can catch the episodes and shorter Power Shop bonuses anytime on my podcast, Signals and Standards with Suzie, available on all your favorite listening platforms. And if something in today's episode sparked a question, a reflection, or you want to dive deeper into building real connection and emotional clarity in your life, visit me at powercoachsuzie.com. I read every message and I love supporting you on your journey. Till next time. For daily inspiration and practical advice, find me on social media at powercoachsuzie. Got questions or ideas for the show? Head to powercoachsuzie.com where you can connect with me, explore the blog, or learn more about what I do. This is Suzie signing off. Until next time, keep reading the signals and never, ever lower your standards.